The Mothman Prophecies is an underappreciated horror film. Based on John Keel's book of the same name, the film was directed by Mark Pellington and stars Richard Gere, Laura Linney, Will Paxton, and Deborah Messing. It was released on January 25, 2002, receiving a mixed critical reception and having a lackluster box office performance. It's a mostly forgotten film outside of its small cult following, but it's grown on me over each subsequent viewing. Its chilling atmosphere and effective scares linger with you well past the credits. In today's video, let's dig into why this movie works so well. Let's explore The Mothman Prophecies. Looking into the behind-the-scenes details of the film for this video was enlightening. It showcased Mark Pellington's confrontational approach to filmmaking, his stylistic impulses, and the crew's tireless work to realize his vision. He was constantly bringing up how the process was a confrontation between art and commerce. This was realized through several fights during the production, which was, for the most part, well-funded and given a substantial schedule. The fight to realize Pellington's vision in retrospect showcases a lot of what makes the film ultimately so uniquely strange. His vision is in many ways a personal and spiritual reflection on the source material, and what strange source material it is. The book that the film is based on, Keel's The Mothman Prophecies, is a work of UFO conspiracy philosophy that deals with the question of ultra-terrestrials or interdimensional beings that use psychic powers to warn of catastrophe. Something so immersed in this kooky pseudoscience is a strange foundation for a mid-budget studio horror film, even with the ability to slap on the extremely dubious label of based on a true story. I still struggle to come to terms with how this film got a $35 million budget. You can point to something similar like The Conjuring, which uses known frauds as the basis for a Christian superhero universe, but in those films, they are at least stylized in such a mainstream way. The Mothman Prophecies leans into its weirdness. With that being said, I'm glad it was made. Despite being a studio project with substantial backing, Pellington refused to soften the weirdness of the material. He knows that the film might struggle to gain traction with a mass audience, but still pushes through to create something truly unique, weird, and scary. This starts with its impeccable vibes. It feels like a Silent Hill game, with a chill and creepy atmosphere. Inspired by the works of David Lynch, the film emphasizes its characters' stories, dwelling on the overwhelming emotions felt during the aftermath of encounters with the supernatural. Its slow-burn horror approach does allow for time to breathe. Eventually, this patient approach pays off with viscerally effective horror accomplished through great sound design and clever filmmaking. Unfortunately, this approach is undermined somewhat by the frantic editing, resembling some of the worst impulses of this era of MTV-inspired editing choices. This is something that frustrates me so much. Slow-burning horror movies can keep people's attention, but it's clear that either the studio or Pellington doesn't trust the material as much as they should, which is so boneheaded as we get some truly scary and unsettling scenes. For example, the most memorable scene is one that features the phone call between John Klein and Indrid Cole. This is bone-chilling. Who knew that hearing a voice over the phone whisper "chapstick" could be so disturbing? That scene is a perfect illustration of the film's approach to horror, opting for psychological mind games rather than gore or jump scares, with even some less pure horror scenes being some of the most chilling moments in the film, such as the several scenes when characters are simply recounting their experiences. The use of abstract visuals in these emotionally charged moments is very effective. Sometimes Pellington can linger too long or overuse these characters' monologues, but most of the time he features them just enough. This allows us to slowly get brought into the mystery of this town in an authentic way that makes the second half's psychological descent much more effective. When things do happen, they have more weight because everyone feels like humans, and we've been lulled into this dazed state by the slow burn of the narrative. This works so effectively due to good performances. The casting was excellent, Gere does a good job in the lead role, Linney and Paxton are fantastic, and even the big characters feel grounded and whole. Pellington is smart to lean on his cast, and they deliver for him. They cared and believed in the material, which for a horror film isn't always a given. The visual language of the film helps to craft an aura of mystery that complements this approach. We don't get explicit depictions of Mothman, instead we get glimpses, shadows, and flashes. This helps to craft a strong, psychologically affecting atmosphere. Pellington is experimenting with so much here with his usage of lighting and sound, and for the most part it works. This horror filmmaking approach makes it feel like a precursor to the work of Osgood Perkins. In fact, upon rewatch, that connection came to mind repeatedly. The way the horror both dabbles in and works against the standard tropes of the genre to make something deeply personal, spiritual, and able to explore deep questions and themes reminded me in a positive way of The Black Coat's Daughter. I think Perkins' experimentation is more effective and coheres more in his debut than we see with Mothman, but the similarity is there. The technical aspects of the film showcase the talent behind the production. The production design, effects, sound, and cinematography all work in tandem with each other. We get some beautiful shots, and the discordant sound design unsettles you. The effects are subtle but effective, and the production design makes everything feel real. The problematic editing does hamper the film's effectiveness, making it somewhat uneven, but overall the film is executed very well. It utilizes effective technical and narrative filmmaking to make something that unexpectedly creeps up on you, jolting you with some truly scary moments, and then enveloping you in its relentlessly nightmarish aesthetic. I like that this film isn't a creature feature with a large kill count. I like that they chose to take the subtler approach with this film. While I enjoy all types of horror films, the approach Pellington took with this material was the right one. Everything in the film feels grounded, like it's happening to real people. This makes those dramatic emotional moments, such as Lenny's dream monologue, have serious narrative weight. Despite some hiccups here and there, it's the type of film that sticks with you for a long time. For being a film about Mothman, the fact that it's a subtle, psychological art house horror film is such a perfect choice. It could have easily gone down a silly path of a goofy creature feature CGI fest, or leaned even further into the UFO angle, but in dropping those elements and leaning on the psychological aspect, this ends up feeling like a precursor to our modern art house horror scene. If this were a current A24 release, I think it would have gained a much more positive reception. However, now it's just an underappreciated film that I'm sure will continue to grow its cult following. These are the types of horror films I'd like to see more of, a mid-budget studio horror film that isn't a sequel or remake, but instead a strangely beautiful adaptation of a ridiculous flying saucer conspiracy book. I'll continue to return to Point Pleasant, West Virginia, in search of the kind of chill that sends a shiver running down your spine. I'll continue to return to the Mothman Prophecies. That's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this film and what horror movie you'd like to see me cover next. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a video. I'll see you next time.